The floor felt cold against her cheek. Lyra could not remember falling, but somehow she was down, her body refusing to respond to her commands. The corridor stretched endlessly in both directions, its white walls gleaming under harsh artificial lights. Hundreds of feet walked past her, belonging to creatures from across the galaxy, but none stopped. A merchant with 4 arms stepped over her tail without breaking stride. 2 floating jellyfish-like beings drifted past, their musical voices fading into the distance. She tried to push herself up. Her arms shook like dead branches in a storm. 4 days without food had pushed her Draken metabolism past its limits. Her species needed constant fuel, their powerful bodies burning through nutrients at terrifying speeds. What would merely inconvenience other species meant death for her kind. The shutdown had begun. Her vision blurred at the edges, darkness creeping in like rising water. Lyra had been Princess Lyra once. 3rd daughter of the Imperium, educated in 17 languages, trained in diplomacy and statecraft. That life ended 3 weeks ago when assassins murdered her father and brothers in the throne room. Her uncle claimed power within hours. She ran with nothing but the clothes she wore, her royal accounts frozen, her allies vanishing like smoke. For 3 weeks, she moved through the galaxy's shadows, trading jewelry for passage, selling her rings for food. Yesterday, she sold her last possession. Today, she had nothing. The transit station buzzed with life around her. Omega, 7 connected hundreds of worlds, processing millions of travelers every cycle. Shops lined the main corridors, selling everything imaginable. The smell of cooking food drifted from a dozen restaurants. Her stomach cramped violently. She could see a food vendor 20 feet away, but she had no credits. She had begged earlier. The vendor called security. Most species feared the Draken, viewing them as dangerous predators. None offered help to a starving dragon. Her eyes closed. The sounds of the station faded. This was how it ended then. Not in battle or glory, but collapsed in a corridor, dying alone among strangers. At least her uncle would never find her body. Small comfort. Hey, can you hear me? The voice spoke galactic standard with an unfamiliar accent. Lyra forced her eyes open. A face hovered above her, belonging to a species she recognized but had rarely encountered. Human. Male, she thought, though she struggled to read their expressions. He wore a gray maintenance uniform with a name patch she could not focus on. His dark eyes showed concern. I'm going to check your vitals, okay? Just stay still. A scanner hummed near her head. She wanted to tell him to leave her alone, that helping her was dangerous, but her voice would not work. The human muttered something in his own language, words she did not know. He pulled off his jacket and bundled it under her head. Metabolic distress. Yeah, that makes sense. You're Draken, right? I read about your species. You need to eat like every few hours or bad things happen. He sat back on his heels, thinking, Okay, I can help with that. She watched him pull a rectangular container from his bag. A lunchbox. He opened it, revealing simple food. Cooked grain, some kind of meat, green vegetables. The smell hit her, and her body convulsed with hunger. He poured water from a bottle into a cup, carefully lifting her head. Small sips. Don't choke. The water was cool and perfect. After a few sips, he set down the cup and held out a piece of the meat. Grilled chicken, her mind supplied uselessly. She took it with trembling fingers and ate. The taste exploded across her tongue. Simple yes, but food. Actual food. She reached for more, and he gave it, piece by piece, until the container was empty. Her body absorbed the nutrients desperately, her metabolism roaring back to life. There you go. You got color coming back. The human smiled. I'm David, by the way. David Chun. I work maintenance here. Lyra managed to focus on his face properly now. He looked tired, she noticed. Lines around his eyes suggested long hours and hard work. His hands were calloused. A working man, then, not wealthy, which made his gift even more significant. That was your meal, she whispered, her voice rough. Yeah, well, you needed it more than me. I can grab something from the cafeteria later. He started packing up his lunchbox. Can you sit up? We should get you somewhere more comfortable than the floor. Why are you helping me? The question seemed to puzzle him. Because you needed help. Why else? Among her people, every action carried calculation. Alliances, debts, political favors. Nothing given freely. Everything transactional. This human gave her his only meal and asked nothing. She could not comprehend it. David helped her sit up, then stand. Her legs wobbled, but held. He kept a steadying hand on her elbow, guiding her away from the main corridor. They walked slowly through side passages away from the crowds. He seemed to know every turn, every shortcut. His station, she realized. He belonged here. They're the medical station in the maintenance section. Nothing fancy, but private. You look like you could use some privacy. He glanced at her. Are you in trouble? You don't have to tell me. Just, if someone's looking for you, the main medical bay has to file reports. Clever. He understood more than he showed. Lyra nodded weakly. Trouble. Yes. Right? We'll keep this quiet then. David pushed open a door marked Authorized Personnel Only and led her into a small room with a medical cot. Seat. Rest. I'll get you some more food in a bit, but let that digest first. Your system's been through a shock. She sat, exhaustion crashing over her now that the immediate crisis had passed. David pulled up a chair and sat down, keeping a respectful distance. He did not press for information, did not demand explanation, just sat there, a quiet presence, while she gathered herself. Thank you, Lyra said finally. You saved my life. David shrugged. Just sharing lunch. Not exactly heroic. In my culture, sharing food is sacred. An act of trust. She looked at him directly. You trusted me not to harm you, not to take advantage. Why? You were dying. Didn't seem like you were in a position to harm anyone. He smiled slightly. Besides, you've got honest eyes. My mom always said I was a good judge of character. Lyra felt something crack inside her chest. This simple maintenance worker, this human who knew nothing about her, showed her more kindness than anyone in her entire royal court. She had been surrounded by privilege and power her whole life, yet starved and dying until a stranger gave her his lunch. Perhaps, she thought, she had been living in the wrong world all along. Consciousness returned in pieces. First came awareness of warmth, then the soft surface beneath her, then the steady hum of air circulation. Lyra's eyes opened to unfamiliar ceiling panels. Panic shot through her, and she sat up fast, her hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that was not there. Whoa, easy. You're safe. David stood near a small counter, doing something with a heating unit. The smell of warm broth filled the room. You passed out again about an hour ago. Figured your body needed the rest. Lyra scanned the room quickly. Small, clean, clearly part of the station's maintenance infrastructure. Medical equipment lined one wall. A single door, currently closed. No windows. Private, as he had promised. She was still dressed, nothing disturbed. David worked at the counter with his back partially to her, giving her space. Where am I? Maintenance Medical Station, Section 7. We use it when workers get minor injuries. Nothing fancy, but it's off the official grid. He turned, carrying a steaming cup. Bone broth. I keep packets in my locker. Good for recovery. Can you drink this? She accepted the cup, wrapping her hands around its warmth. The broth tasted simple but rich, full of minerals her body craved. She drank slowly, feeling strength seep back into her muscles. David pulled up a chair and sat down, maintaining that same respectful distance. How long was I out? About 3 hours total. You're breathing even out after the first hour, so I figured you were just sleeping. He paused. Look, I don't want to pry, but are you hurt anywhere? That scanner earlier only checked metabolic function. No injuries. Just hunger. Lyra studied him over the rim of her cup. You stayed with me. Why? Couldn't just leave you alone. What if you needed help? He said it as if it was obvious. Besides, my shift doesn't end for another 2 hours anyway. Plenty of time. Your shift. You're working. Yeah, but this section's already clean. I'm ahead of schedule. David leaned back in his chair. I'm David Shun, like I said. Been working here about 2 years. Boring job, decent pay. I send most of it back home to Earth. Earth, the human homeworld. Yep, My parents are getting older, and my sister's putting her kids through school. Figured I could make better money out here than back home." He smiled slightly. Not exactly glamorous, but it helps. Lyra felt something twist in her chest. This man sent his wages across the galaxy to support his family, yet gave his meal to a stranger without hesitation. She came from wealth beyond measure, yet had never given freely in her life. Everything had been duty, obligation, political calculation. "I am Lyra." She hesitated, then decided truth deserved truth. "I have been traveling alone for 3 weeks. My resources ran out. I cannot access my accounts. Frozen assets? That's rough." David did not press for details. "What were you planning to do? Before you collapsed." "I do not know. Find work, perhaps. Anything to survive another day." The admission tasted bitter. "I have education, languages, skills, but no one hires Draken easily. They fear us." "Yeah, I've noticed people give you a wide berth." "That's stupid if you ask me. You're just a person." He stood up. "Listen, you need real food. That broth's helping, but it's not enough. The station has this place that serves high-protein meals. Good for Draken metabolism. It's pricey, but I've got some credits saved." "No, you already gave too much. I gave you my lunch. That's not exactly a huge sacrifice." David grabbed his jacket. "Come on, you can barely stand. Let's get some real food in you, then we can figure out what to do next." Lyra wanted to refuse. Pride demanded she refuse. But hunger was stronger than pride, and something about this human made refusal seem foolish. She stood carefully, testing her legs. Stronger now, but still shaky. David offered his arm, and she took it, allowing him to steady her. They moved through the maintenance corridors, emerging into a service hallway that led to the station's commercial district. David navigated confidently, avoiding main thoroughfares, keeping to paths where fewer people traveled. Protecting her privacy, she realized, or protecting her from hostile attention. The restaurant he chose was small, tucked into a corner of the food court. The owner was a thick-bodied alien with gray skin and too many eyes. David greeted him by name. "Hey, Gordo, need a high-protein plate. Extra portions." The owner's eyes swiveled to Lyra, then back to David. "Draken portions cost triple. Human. You know this." "I know. Put on my tab." "Your tab is already large. I get paid in 3 days. I'm good for it." David guided Lyra to a small table in the back. "Trust me, Gordo. When have I not paid?" The owner grumbled, but moved to prepare food. Lyra sat down, confused. "You have debt here already?" "Just regular meals. I eat here sometimes when I work late." David sat across from her. "Gordo complains, but he knows I always pay. It's fine. You're spending money you do not have on a stranger." "I have it. I just don't have it right this second." He waved this away as unimportant. "Besides, you need food more than I need savings. Money's replaceable. People aren't." Gordo arrived with a massive platter piled with grilled meats, roasted bones full of marrow, and dense nutritional cakes. Lyra stared at it, then at David, then back at the food. Her eyes burned with sudden moisture. "Eat," David said gently. "Please. You're making me nervous, looking like you might cry." She ate. This time she could savor it, could eat at a proper pace instead of desperate gulps. The food was good, well prepared, exactly what her body needed. With each bite, strength returned. Her mind cleared. The fog of starvation lifted and she could think again. David watched her eat with quiet satisfaction, occasionally sipping water but ordering nothing for himself. Saving money, she realized. He could not afford to feed both of them, so he chose her. A stranger, a potentially dangerous predator from a species most beings feared. He chose her anyway. Why? The word came out rough. Why what? Why help me? You know nothing about me. I could be a criminal, a fugitive, dangerous. David considered this seriously. Could be, yeah, but you're not. I can tell. How? The way you move, the way you speak. You're educated, careful with words. You've got manners, even starving. He met her eyes. And you're scared, really scared. Not of me, but of something else. Someone running from justice doesn't look scared like that. They look angry or desperate. You look like someone who lost everything. Lyra set down her utensils carefully. You see too much, David Chun. My mom used to say the same thing. Said I should have been a detective instead of janitor. He smiled. But detectives don't get to help people as directly. I like being useful. You're far more than useful. You are kind. Genuinely kind. I have met few truly kind people in my life. That's sad. Where I come from, kindness is pretty normal. People help each other. It's just what you do. Not where I come from. Lyra picked up a bone, cracking it to reach the marrow. Where I come from, every action has a price. Every favor carries debt. Nothing is free. Sounds exhausting. It is. She ate the marrow slowly, thinking, I need to find work. To survive here until I can move on. You speak a lot of languages. 17 fluently. Another 8 conversationally. David whistled. Okay, that's impressive. The station needs translators constantly, especially for legal stuff and trade negotiations. I bet you could find something in the administrative section. Hope flickered, small but real. You think they would hire me? Why not? You're qualified. Just need to file an application. He paused. I can help with that if you want. Show you where to go, how the process works. You would do that. Already am doing it, aren't I? David grinned. Finish eating. Then we'll get you sorted out. One step at a time. Lyra finished her meal in silence, her mind working through possibilities. Work meant income. Income meant safety. Safety meant time to plan her next move. Maybe even time to contact remaining loyalists, to learn what was happening in the Imperium. All because one human janitor shared his lunch. She looked across the table at David, who sat patiently, asking nothing, expecting nothing, simply present. For the first time in 3 weeks, Lyra felt something other than fear. She felt grateful. 7 days had passed since Lyra collapsed in that corridor. 7 days of slowly rebuilding something that resembled a life. The administrative office hired her within 2 days of applying, desperate for someone who could translate legal documents between Draken, Centauri, and a dozen other languages. The pay was modest but regular. She could afford a small sleeping pod in the station's residential section. She could buy food. Simple things, but they meant everything. David had helped with all of it. Showed her where to apply, how to navigate station bureaucracy, which markets had the best prices. They fell into an easy rhythm. He worked his maintenance shifts, she worked her translation jobs, and they met for meals when their schedules aligned. She insisted on paying for her own food now. He let her, though she suspected it amused him. Right now, they sat in Gordo's restaurant again, sharing a table during David's lunch break. Lyra worked through a plate of grilled meat, while David ate noodles from a steaming bowl. They talked about small things. The weather control system malfunctioning on level 12. The new coffee vendor that opened near the main plaza. Normal things. Safe things. So this trader yesterday could not understand why his contract was invalid, Lyra said, breaking a bone to reach the marrow inside. He kept insisting Centauri law applied. I had to explain 3 times that station regulations override planetary law within station boundaries. Did he get it eventually? Eventually, yes. After I showed him the regulation in his own language. She smiled slightly. He was not happy. You bet. People hate being wrong. David slurped noodles. But hey, at least you made the station some money. They fine people for filing invalid contracts, right? They do. My supervisor was pleased. They ate in comfortable silence for a moment. Then David's expression shifted, his eyes focusing on something behind her. His entire body went tense. Lyra, don't look now, but there are 3 Draken near the entrance. They're watching us. Her blood went cold. Slowly, carefully, she set down her food. Describe them. 2 males, 1 female. All wearing civilian clothes, but they move like military. The tall one has a scar across his snout. Scar. She knew that scar. Commander Rothhack, her uncle's personal enforcer. They found her. After 3 weeks of running, all her precautions worthless. Of course they found her. Her uncle had the entire Imperial intelligence network at his disposal. David, listen carefully. Those are bounty hunters sent to kill me. She kept her voice low, calm. You need to leave. Now, go back to work and pretend you never met me. What? No. They will kill anyone who helps me. Please just go. David's jaw set in a stubborn line she was learning to recognize. Not happening. Come on. There's a maintenance entrance 20 feet behind you. Move casual, like we're just leaving. David, I know this station better than anyone. They don't. Move. He stood up, leaving credits on the table for Gordo. Lyra rose, her heart hammering. They walked toward the back of the restaurant, not running, just two people finishing their meal. She could feel eyes on her back. Tracking, calculating, they made it to the maintenance door. David pressed his hand to the scanner and it opened. They slipped through into a narrow corridor lined with pipes and conduits. The door sealed behind them. This way. Fast now. They ran. David led her through a maze of passages she never knew existed. Service tunnels, maintenance shafts, emergency access routes. Behind them, she heard the maintenance door breach. The hunters were following. How did they open that? It needs authorization. Money opens a lot of doors, David panted. Keep moving. They burst into a larger corridor. David slapped a panel on the wall, and emergency bulkheads began to drop, heavy doors designed to contain hull breaches. They slid under one just before it sealed, the metal slamming down with a deep boom. That'll slow them down, but not for long. David pulled out his communicator, typing rapidly. I'm triggering a false pressure alarm 3 sections over. Security will have to check it. Should draw attention. Lyra stared at him. This janitor, this simple maintenance worker, was outmaneuvering trained Imperial hunters. How do you know to do this? I've been working here for 2 years. You learn things. He grabbed her hand. Come on. There's a cargo shuttle leaving for the inner stations in 20 minutes. We need to be on it. You think I'm letting you run off alone with assassins chasing you? He pulled her into motion again. Not happening. They reached a cargo bay through a service entrance. Workers loaded containers onto a battered freighter, too busy to notice 2 more people slipping aboard. David led her into the cargo hold, finding a space behind stacked crates. They pressed into the shadows just as the loading ramp began to rise that Lyra's hands were shaking. She pressed them together, forcing calm. They will search the ships. Probably. But this one's leaving first. By the time they get clearance to search, we'll be gone. David checked his communicator. Docking clamps releasing in 90 seconds. You are abandoning your job. Your life here. Yeah. Well, seemed like the right call. He looked at her seriously. You want to tell me what's going on? The real story. The ship shuddered as it detached from the station. Through the cargo hold's small window, Lyra watched Omega 7 fall away. Her safe harbor gone. David had given up his job, his income, his stability. For her, she owed him truth. My name is Lyra. Princess Lyra, 3rd daughter of the Draken Imperium. The words felt strange after hiding for so long. 3 weeks ago, my uncle murdered my father and brothers in a coup. He took the throne. I'm the last legitimate heir. He wants me dead. David was quiet for a long moment. Okay, that's bigger than I expected. Those hunters will kill you for helping me. You should not have come. Little late for that. He managed a shaky smile. Besides, what kind of person would I be if I let them kill you? Saved you from starvation just to let assassins finish the job? That's terrible efficiency. Despite everything, Lyra almost laughed. You are insane. Maybe. My sister always said I had a hero complex. He sobered. So what's the plan? Where do we go? The neutral rim. Independent worlds outside Imperial authority. It is the only place they cannot follow legally. Legally. But they'll follow anyway, won't they? Yes. Eventually. Lyra pulled her knees to her chest. But it buys time. Time to plan. To find allies. Allies for what? She met his eyes. To take back my throne. To stop my uncle from destroying everything my father built. He is a tyrant, David. His rule will bring suffering to billions. No pressure then. David leaned back against the crates. How long to the neutral rim? 3 weeks on this freighter, if it goes to Refuge Station. 3 weeks. Okay. He pulled out a small bag from his jacket. Good thing I grabbed my emergency kit. Got some credits, basic supplies. Not much, but something. You planned for this. I planned for needing to disappear fast. Working on a space station, you learn to have an exit strategy. He offered her a ration bar. Here, you should eat. Your metabolism doesn't do well with stress. Lyra took the bar, unwrapping it slowly. Why are you doing this? I am a stranger. A few days ago, you did not even know my name. You needed help. Still need help, looks like. He shrugged. Besides, you're not a stranger anymore. You're a friend. Friends help each other. Friends. She tested the word. I have had few friends. Allies, yes. Political connections. But not friends. Well, you've got one now. Whether you want one or not. David smiled. We'll figure this out, Lyra. One step at a time. The freighter's engines hummed as they accelerated away from the station. Lyra ate her ration bar in silence, watching David. He sat calmly, as if he had not just thrown away his entire life. As if being hunted by Imperial assassins was a minor inconvenience. His steadiness anchored her, kept the panic at bay. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. Thank me when we're safe. For now, let's just focus on surviving the next 3 weeks. He settled in more comfortably. Tell me about the neutral rim. What are we walking into? Lyra began to explain, describing the independent worlds that rejected Imperial rule. As she talked, the fear slowly ebbed. David listened, asked good questions, treated her like a person instead of princess. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she realized something had shifted. She was no longer running alone. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The cargo freighter's steadfast promise smelled like recycled air and old metal. Lyra had grown used to it over the past 2 weeks. The ship was ancient, held together more by prayer than proper maintenance. But its captain asked few questions and took cash. That was all that mattered. She sat in the tiny cabin she shared with David, reviewing a datapad. The captain had asked her to translate some contract documents in exchange for better food rations. David was down in engineering, helping the crew repair a failing coolant pump. They both worked to earn their passage and avoid suspicion that a knock on the door interrupted her reading. David entered, covered in grease, grinning despite the grime. Got the pump working again. Chief engineer says I have magic hands. You have mechanical knowledge. Same thing to him. David grabbed a rag, wiping his hands. Ship should make it to refuge without exploding. Probably. Probably is not reassuring. Best we're going to get on this bucket. He sat down on his bunk, across from hers. The cabin was barely large enough for 2 narrow beds and a small storage locker. How's the translation work? Simple trade agreements. Nothing complicated. Lyra set down the datapad. The captain is pleased. He said we can stay on board through refuge if we want. He runs regular routes. Might be useful. Having a reliable transport contact. David pulled off his work boots. We've got 3 days until we arrive. You thought about what we do once we get there. Find work. Disappear into the population. Refuge is large enough to hide in. She paused. I need to contact the Loyalist Network. Find out who still supports my family. Is that safe? No, but necessary. Lyra stood, pacing the small space. I cannot hide forever, David. Eventually I must act. I know. Just hate the idea of you sticking your neck out. He watched her pace. These loyalists, you trust them? Some. Others are opportunists who supported my father for power, not principle. Determining which will be difficult. David nodded slowly. What about me? Where do I fit into all this? Lyra stopped pacing. What do you mean? I mean, you're a princess planning to take back a throne. I'm a janitor from Earth who fixes pumps. Bit of a gap there. He spoke without bitterness, just stating facts. I want to help, but I don't know how. She sat down on her bunk, facing him. You have already helped more than you know. You kept me alive, helped me escape, gave me someone to trust. She hesitated, then continued. I've been alone my entire life, David. Surrounded by people, but alone. You're the first person who ever helped me without wanting something in return. That's not true. I want plenty in return. Lyra's heart sank. Of course. Everyone wanted something. What do you want? I want you to be safe. I want to see you smile more. I want to help you win. He met her eyes. That's what I want. Is that too much? She could not speak for a moment. Finally, she managed. You are a very strange human. I'll take that as a compliment. He smiled. We're in this together, Lyra. Princess or not, you're my friend. Where you go, I go. The ship shuddered suddenly, alarms blaring. Both of them jumped to their feet. David grabbed the wall communicator. "This is Chun. What's happening?" The captain's voice crackled through. "Imperial patrol vessel just appeared on sensors. They're demanding we stop for inspection. Get to the common room. Now." They ran. The common room was chaos. The crew scrambled, the captain barking orders. Through the viewport, a sleek Imperial warship paced them, close enough to see weapon ports. "They tracked us," Lyra breathed. "Ow! Does it matter?" David looked around. "Can we outrun them?" "Not in this ship," the captain said. "They're hailing, demanding I turn over any Draken passengers." He looked at Lyra. "I don't want trouble with the Imperium. If you give her to them, they'll kill her," David said flatly. "And if I don't, they'll kill all of us." The captain's face was hard. "I am sorry, but I've got a crew to think about. You're going to hand her over?" "After 2 weeks." David stepped between the captain and Lyra. "We worked for our passage. We helped keep this ship running. And I'm grateful, but not grateful enough to die." The captain reached for the communicator. "Prepare to be boarded." David's hand shot out, hitting the communicator first. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Lyra grabbed David's arm. "Stop. He is right. I will not let you all die for me. There's got to be another way." David looked around wildly. "The escape pods. We could take one, head for that asteroid field we passed an hour ago. They'll chase us instead of the ship." "Escape pods have a range of maybe 6 hours," the captain said. "You'll die in space. Better than dying here." David was already moving toward the pod bay. "Come on, Lyra." The captain made no move to stop them. The crew parted, some looking guilty, others relieved. Lyra followed David, her mind racing. This was madness. But staying was certain death. They reached the pod bay. David yanked open the nearest pod, checking systems. Power's at 70%. Life support good for 12 hours. Distress beacon. He climbed in. "Get in." Lyra hesitated at the threshold. "David, this is suicide." "Maybe, but it's our suicide, not theirs." He held out his hand. "Trust me." She took his hand and climbed in. The pod was designed for 2 people in an emergency, nothing more. They strapped in as David initiated launch sequence. Through the small viewport, she saw the captain watching them. He nodded once, then hit the release. The pod shot out into space. The sudden acceleration pressed them back into their seats. Behind them, the steadfast promise grew smaller. The Imperial warship turned, tracking their trajectory. "They're following," Lyra said. "Good. That's the point." David adjusted their heading, aiming for the asteroid field. "Captain can claim ignorance now. He tried to stop us, but we stole the pod. He's in the clear. We are not in the clear." "Details." David focused on the controls. "I've got an idea. See those asteroids? Some of them are iron-rich. They scatter sensors. If we can get deep enough into the field, we might lose them. And then what? We still have limited life support. One problem at a time." He coaxed more speed from the pod's tiny engine. Come on. The Imperial ship fired a warning shot. Energy flashed past the pod, close enough to rock them. David cursed in his native language. Words Lyra did not know, but whose meaning was clear. He dove the pod toward the densest part of the asteroid field, space around them filled with tumbling rocks. David flew like he had done this before, weaving between asteroids, using them for cover. The Imperial ship followed, but more cautiously, its larger size a disadvantage here. "There!" David pointed at a massive asteroid, pitted with craters. "That one's rotating. See that crater on the far side? If we can land in it, we'll be shielded when it rotates away from them." "Land? On an asteroid? You got a better idea?" She did not. David aimed for the crater, firing maneuvering thrusters. The landing was rough, the pod bouncing once before magnetic clamps engaged. They stuck to the surface as the asteroid continued its slow rotation. Through the viewport, they watched the Imperial ship pass overhead. It fired into the asteroid field, destroying several rocks, but did not seem to know their exact location. Slowly, their crater rotated away, putting solid rock between them and the hunters. "Do we lose them?" Lyra whispered. "For now. They'll search for a while, but they can't stay forever. Too risky in this field." David checked their systems. Life support's down to 10 hours, though. We need a rescue. From who? He pulled out his communicator, switching to emergency frequencies. Anyone listening? We need help. They sat in the cramped pod, stuck to an asteroid, waiting. Minutes stretched into an hour. The Imperial ship's engine's signature faded as it moved away, searching other parts of the field. David kept broadcasting their distress signal. Lyra watched him work, this human who kept saving her life in impossible situations. Why are you not afraid? Who says I'm not afraid? David glanced at her. I'm terrified. But being scared doesn't help. Doing something helps. You could have stayed on the freighter. Told them you did not know who I was. Could have. Didn't want to. He adjusted the signal strength. You're worth the risk, Lyra. Before she could respond, the communicator crackled. This is mining ship Dusty Rose. We read your distress signal. What's your situation? David nearly shouted with relief. We're stuck on an asteroid. Life support running low. Can you pick us up? Locked onto your beacon. Be there in 20 minutes. Seat tights. They waited, watching their air supply tick down. True to their word, a battered mining vessel appeared, its hull scarred from years of work. It positioned beside their asteroid, extending a docking tube. David and Lyra transferred over, welcomed by a crew of mixed species. Thanks, David said to the captain, a grizzled alien with 6 arms. We owe you. Just doing what's right. You're headed to refuge. Yes, we're going that way. You can ride along. The captain eyed them, though you might want to explain why an Imperial warship was hunting you. David and Lyra exchanged glances. Long story, David said. We got time. Refuge Station materialized out of the black like a city of lights. The mining ship Dusty Rose approached slowly, following traffic control instructions. Lyra pressed her face to the viewport, studying her new home. The station was massive, built from repurposed freighters and mining platforms, all welded together into a chaotic but functional structure. Home to 50,000 souls from 100 different worlds. Never seen anything like it, David murmured beside her. It is beautiful, Lyra said, and meant it. Not beautiful like Imperial architecture, all perfect lines and calculated grandeur. Beautiful because it was real, built by working people, for working people. No politics, no games, just survival and community. The captain of the Dusty Rose had been true to his word. He asked few questions, gave them a cabin, fed them, and now delivered them safely to refuge. As they docked, he found them in the common room. Station's rough, but fair, he told them. You work, you eat. Nobody cares about your past, just your present. He handed David a data chip. Contact list. People who might have work for you. Tell them Captain Ned sent you. Thank you, Lyra said. We will not forget this kindness. Just pass it on when you can. That's how we survive out here. Ned nodded and left them. They disembarked into Refuge's main concourse. The noise hit first. Hundreds of voices in dozens of languages, mixing into a roar of commerce and life. Vendors hawked goods from makeshift stalls. Workers hurried past, carrying tools and materials. The air smelled like cooking food, machine oil, and humanity in all its forms. This is overwhelming, Lyra admitted. Yeah. David shouldered his small bag. But it's honest. I like that. He consulted the data chip. Captain Ned says there's a hiring hall 3 levels down. Let's start there. They found the hiring hall easily enough. A large open room with job postings on screens covering every wall. Employers sat at tables, interviewing candidates. David went straight to a posting for repair technicians. Lyra found several requests for translators and linguistic consultants that by the end of the day, they both had work. David was hired by a maintenance company that serviced the station's life support systems. Lyra found a position with a mediation firm that handled disputes between different species and cultures. The pay was modest but real. Finding housing proved harder. Everything was expensive or dangerous. Finally, they found a landlord willing to rent them a small apartment in an older section. 2 rooms, basic amenities, but private and secure. They took it immediately. Home, David said, setting down his bag in the empty apartment. Sort of. It is enough. Lyra walked through the space, already planning. More than enough. They settled in a life on refuge over the following weeks. David worked long shifts repairing environmental systems, coming home exhausted but satisfied. Lyra mediated disputes, her royal training in diplomacy proving unexpectedly useful. She helped a human merchant and a Centauri trader resolve a contract disagreement. She negotiated peace between two rival mining crews. Small things, but important. In the evenings, they cooked together in their tiny kitchen. David taught her human recipes, simple meals made from whatever the markets offered. She showed him how to prepare Draken dishes that would not set off the fire alarms. They talked about their days, shared stories, built something that felt like friendship. Something that maybe felt like more. One evening, 3 months after arriving, Lyra came home to find David cooking something that smelled incredible. Garlic, ginger, vegetables sizzling in oil. He looked up as she entered, smiling. Good day. Long day. Difficult clients. She dropped onto their worn couch. What are you making? Stir fry. My mom's recipe. Well, adapted for alien vegetables, but close enough. He stirred the pan expertly. You look tired. I am tired, but good tired. She watched him cook, appreciating the simple domesticity. David, can I ask you something? Always. Are you happy here? He considered this while plating food. Yeah, actually. We're on the run from an evil space empire, living in a tiny apartment, working hard jobs. But yeah, I'm happy. He brought over 2 plates, sitting beside her. Lyra accepted the plate, steam rising from the food. I'm happy. For the first time in my life, I feel like I am living instead of performing. They ate in comfortable silence. The food was excellent, perfectly balanced flavors. David had gotten good at cooking for her metabolism, adding extra protein and minerals her body needed. I need to make contact soon, Lyra said eventually. With the loyalists. I cannot hide here forever. I know. David set down his fork. I've been thinking about that. Maybe I could help. You need someone who can move around without drawing attention. Someone obviously not Draken. You want me my courier? Why not? I'm good at being invisible. People don't notice janitors or maintenance workers. He smiled slightly. It's a skill. Lyra considered this. It was dangerous, but he was right. A human moving through the station attracted far less attention than she did. If we do this, you must be careful. My uncle's agents could be anywhere. I'm always careful. He picked up his fork again. When do you want to start? Soon. I need to know the situation in the Imperium. Who still supports my family? What my uncle has done since taking power. Over the next weeks, they began carefully reaching out. David made contacts, passed messages, gathered information. Slowly, a picture emerged. The Imperium was fracturing. Lyra's uncle ruled through fear and violence. Rebellions sprouted across the frontier worlds. The military was divided, some officers supporting the coup, others remaining loyal to the old emperor's memory, and people were looking for Lyra. Not just her uncle's hunters, but loyalists. They needed a symbol, a legitimate heir around which to rally. They needed hope. One evening, David came home with a data chip encrypted with a message. Lyra decrypted it, reading the contents carefully. An invitation from General Cora, her father's most trusted military commander. She was gathering forces, preparing to strike against the usurper. She asked Lyra to return, to lead them. What are you going to do? David asked quietly. Lyra set down the datapad. I do not know. If I go back, I put myself in danger. But if I stay, people suffer under my uncle's rule. What does your gut say? My gut says I have a responsibility. I am my father's daughter. I cannot abandon my people. She looked at him. But I am afraid, David. I have been running for so long. The thought of standing and fighting terrifies me. David moved closer, taking her hand. Being scared doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it matters. You would come with me? Into a war. I said where you go, I go. I meant it. He squeezed her hand. Besides, you need someone to watch your back. Someone too stubborn to give up on you. Lyra felt tears prick her eyes. I do not deserve you. Yes, you do. You deserve people who believe in you, who see how strong you are. He smiled. You just haven't had many of them before. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his shoulder. I'm afraid of losing you. I'm afraid of losing you too. But we can't let fear decide everything. David wrapped his arms around her carefully. We'll be smart. We'll be careful. And we'll face whatever comes together. They sat like that for a long time, holding each other in the small apartment that had become home. Outside, Refuge Station hummed with life. Ships came and went. People lived and worked and dreamed of better futures. Somewhere out there, an empire waited. A war was coming. But right now, in this moment, Lyra felt safe, felt loved, felt ready. She pulled back, looking at David seriously. If I do this, I want you beside me. Not as a servant or a helper. As an equal. As my advisor. Will you do that? I'm a janitor from Earth. What do I know about advising princesses? You know about people, about kindness and courage, about doing the right thing even when it is hard. She smiled. That is what I need most. Someone who reminds me why I am fighting. David nodded slowly. Okay, yes. I'll do it. Then we should prepare. We leave for General Cora's base in 1 week. Lyra stood, pulling him up with her. We have much to do. They spent that week preparing, gathering supplies, making arrangements. Lyra contacted the general, confirming their arrival. David practiced with weapons, determined not to be helpless in the coming fight. They said goodbye to the friends they had made on Refuge, promising to return when they could. On the last night, they stood on the observation deck, watching stars through the viewport. David took her hand. Whatever happens, he said, I'm glad I shared my lunch with you that day. Lyra laughed, the sound surprising even herself. So am I. Though you probably did not expect it to lead to overthrowing an empire. Life's full of surprises. He squeezed her hand. Ready for the next adventure? She squeezed back. With you? Always. The rebel base was not what Lyra expected. She had imagined military precision and imperial grandeur. Instead, she found a converted mining facility on a moon nobody wanted, filled with soldiers who looked more like refugees than an army. But their eyes held fire. They believed in something. They believed in her. General Cora met them at the landing pad. She was massive even for a Draken, scarred from decades of combat. Her scales dulled with age, but her spine straight. She knelt when she saw Lyra, a gesture that made Lyra's throat tight. Your Highness, we thought you dead. I nearly was. Lyra helped the general stand. Please, no formalities. I am just Lyra until we win this war. Cora's eyes shifted to David, standing slightly behind Lyra. And who is this human? David Chun, my advisor and friend. He speaks with my voice and my authority. Lyra's tone left no room for argument. He has saved my life more times than I can count. Trust him as you trust me. Cora studied David for a long moment. David met her gaze steadily, not backing down despite being half her size. Finally, the general nodded. Any friend of the princess is welcome here. Come, we have much to discuss. The command center was organized chaos. Officers shouted coordinates, intelligence reports scrolled across screens, and tactical displays showed the Empire's current state. Cora walked them through it all. Your uncle controls the core worlds and the capital, but his support is shallow. He rules through fear, executing anyone who questions him. The outer colonies are in open rebellion. The military is split, with about 40% staying loyal to him, the rest either defecting to us or staying neutral. Numbers? Lyra asked. We have about 15,000 soldiers currently. More arriving every day as word spreads that you're alive. He has perhaps 50,000, but many are conscripts who do not want to fight. David studied the tactical display. What about supply lines? If his support is concentrated in the core worlds, he needs to ship supplies to his frontier forces, right? Cora looked at him with new respect. Correct. We have been hitting those supply convoys. It weakens his reach. Then hit them harder. David pointed at several routes. These are the main arteries. If you cut them, his frontier garrisons starve. They'll surrender or defect rather than die for a tyrant they don't believe in. Cutting those lines requires significant force. No, it requires smart force. Small teams, hit and run, guerrilla tactics. Make him spread thin, trying to protect everything. David glanced at Lyra. Humans got good at this kind of warfare. We fought empires before and won. Korra's expression was thoughtful. I see why you value his counsel. Highness. They spent days planning. Lyra met with soldiers, listened to their stories, heard about villages destroyed and families torn apart by her uncle's tyranny. Each story strengthened her resolve. David worked with the tactical teams, sharing human strategies for asymmetric warfare. To her surprise, the Draken officers listened. His ideas were unconventional but effective. 1 week after arriving, Lyra addressed the assembled forces. Thousands of soldiers gathered in the main hangar, from young recruits to grizzled veterans. She stood on a platform, David beside her, looking out at the sea of faces. I stand before you not as a princess, she began, her voice carrying through the speakers, but as someone who has lived as you live. I have been hunted. I have starved. I have known fear and desperation. I collapsed on a space station, alone and dying, with nothing left. She gestured to David. This human, who owed me nothing, gave me his meal. Not because he wanted something from me, not for political gain, simply because I needed help and he could give it. That is the empire I want to build. One based on compassion, not conquest. On lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. The crowd was silent, listening intently. My father was not perfect. Our empire has made mistakes. But he believed in duty, in service, in protecting those under his rule. My uncle believes only in power. He murders those who question him. He starves worlds that resist. He rules through terror because he cannot rule through respect. She paused, letting her words sink in. I ask you to fight not for me, but for the kind of future we want. A future where strength means protecting the weak, not exploiting them. Where leaders serve their people instead of the reverse. Where no one, regardless of species or station, is left to die alone in a corridor. David stepped forward. I'm just a janitor from Earth. I have no title, no noble blood. But I've learned something serving beside Princess Lyra. Leadership is not about being better than others. It's about making others better. She does that. She sees potential where others see only problems. She finds solutions where others see only obstacles. That's why I follow her. Not because I have to, but because I believe in her. The soldiers erupted, cheering, stamping feet, weapons raised in salute. Lyra felt the weight of it, the responsibility and the hope. She glanced at David, who smiled encouragingly. The campaign began 3 days later. Strike teams hit supply convoys across the frontier. David went with one team, despite Lyra's protests. He insisted he needed to understand the reality of the fight, not just plan from safety. She let him go, though it terrified her. He returned a week later, exhausted but unharmed. His team had destroyed 2 major supply depots and freed a labor camp holding 300 prisoners. The rescued prisoners joined the rebellion immediately. You were right, Korra told David. These tactics work. His forces are overextended, trying to defend everything. We're winning. But victory was not clean or easy. Battles were fought. Soldiers died. Lyra visited field hospitals, holding the hands of dying warriors, promising their sacrifice mattered. Each death weighed on her. David found her one night, sitting alone, tears streaming down her face. I sent them to die, she whispered. You sent them to fight for something worth dying for. That's different. He sat beside her. War is terrible, but sometimes it's necessary to stop something worse. How do you stay so calm? I'm not calm. I'm scared every day. But I remember why we're doing this. He took her hand. Every person we free from your uncle's prisons. Every world we liberate from his tyranny. Every soldier who defects because they see a better future with you. That's why. The war raged for 6 months. Slowly, inevitably, the tide turned. Lyra's forces grew as more soldiers defected. Entire fleets switched sides when their admirals met Lyra and saw she was real, saw she cared. Supply lines collapsed. Frontier garrisons surrendered. The core worlds began to waver. Finally, the Loyalist fleet reached the capital. The final battle was brief. Half the defending fleet refused to fire on Lyra's ships. The palace guard opened the gates when she arrived. Her uncle had fled, abandoned by everyone except his most fanatical supporters. They found him in the throne room, sitting on her father's seat, defiant to the end. Cora wanted to execute him immediately. Lyra refused. No, he will face trial. We will show the Empire that we are better than him. That justice matters more than revenge. David stood beside her as she addressed the capital from the palace balcony. Billions watched across the empire, seeing their new empress for the first time. She spoke simply from the heart about healing and rebuilding, about serving instead of ruling, about the human who taught her what true leadership meant. She reached for David's hand in front of everyone. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Such public displays were forbidden in Draken culture. She did not care. This human saved my life when I was nothing. He followed me when I had nothing to offer. He advised me when I needed wisdom. And he loved me when I thought I was unlovable. She looked at him. The old empire would say this is inappropriate, that empresses do not hold hands with janitors, that such displays show weakness. She turned back to the crowd. I say the old empire was wrong. Loving someone does not make you weak. It makes you strong enough to care about someone else's happiness as much as your own. This human taught me that, and I will build an empire that honors such lessons. David squeezed her hand, his eyes bright. No pressure, he murmured, making her laugh despite the weight of the moment. The rebuilding was harder than the war. Restoring infrastructure, healing divisions, establishing new laws that protected all citizens regardless of species. David worked beside her through all. She made him Minister of Integration, responsible for improving relations between humans and other species. He protested he was unqualified. She told him being qualified was less important than being decent. Years later, standing in the same palace gardens where her father used to walk, Lyra reflected on the strange path her life had taken. From princess to refugee to revolutionary to empress. All because she fainted in a corridor and a janitor gave her his lunch. David found her there, as he always did. He carried 2 cups of tea, offering her one. They sat together on a bench, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Giving up your simple life? You could be back on Earth now, running that restaurant you dreamed about. I could be, but I'd rather be here, with you, changing an empire. He sipped his tea. Besides, I'm teaching the palace kitchen staff to make proper stir-fry. Close enough to a restaurant. She laughed, leaning against his shoulder. I love you, David Chun. My advisor. My friend. My janitor. And I love you, Lyra. My empress. My friend. My dragon. He kissed her forehead. Though technically I'm Minister of Integration now. Promoted beyond janitor. You will always be my janitor. The one who saw someone who needed help and helped anyway. That is who you are. They sat in peaceful silence as stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere in the empire, people lived in peace who once lived in fear. Children grew up learning that kindness mattered more than power. A revolution that started with a shared meal had changed everything. And it all began because one human believed that hungry strangers deserved lunch.